you know, there's a man out there who can eat 53 hot dogs in less time than it takes to make the bun?
Definitely one of those things that needs the warning, don't try this at home.
That a particular jingle was once so popular, people requested it on the radio.
Oh, I'd love to be an Oscar Mayer wiener.
Once you hear it, you don't forget
What I
it.
truly like to be.
Or that a home run king supposedly downed 14 hot dogs during a doubleheader.
He always talked about how many hot dogs he can eat.
From the ballpark
You can hold a hot dog in one hand, have a beer or a soda in the other, and still stand up and scream.
to the backyard barbecue to the wonderful world of Wienermobiles.
That's why you're buying. You're buying fantasy.
The hot dog isn't just America's favorite fun food, it's an all-consuming national passion. But it hasn't been easy getting the ingredients approved, the sausages stuffed, and the advertising unforgettable.
We're kosher.
It's a story full of imaginative immigrants, cutting-edge science, and a simple sausage that became an acclaimed American original. On American Eats Hot Dogs. It's the go anywhere, eat anytime meal.
Hot dog diggity, are they good?
We eat about 60 of them per person each year.
Meat like this I could eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Perhaps more than any other food, the hot dog reflects America's spirit of individuality.
Because there's something, odd and eccentric and weird about it.
The hot dogs are coming! The hot dogs are coming!
It's really interesting when you look at the definition of a hot dog and you see that it's a food product and it's a description of someone who's a bit of a show-off. Hot dog defines American. So Americans are known for being bold, for being individualistic, and that's what hot dogs really are.
Have you ever stopped to think how important frankfurters are in our daily eating patterns?
Whether you drip it with mustard, cover it in chili, or fry it in corn, there's no denying it. The hot dog is a true American eat. We love them so much that we eat roughly 600 hot dogs a second. Supplied to us by state-of-the-art factories that can churn out as many as 500,000 hot dogs a day. But to understand this American hot dog hunger, it's important to go back before American history even begins. To 5000 BC and the creation of the sausage.
The sausages have been discovered in the pyramids. We know they go back to the Egyptians. And the idea is very simple, that after you cut the animal up into steaks and roasts, there's a lot of usable meat left on the bones. And it was a duh moment for civilizations to take those scraps of meat and put them inside the intestines that animals have that function very conveniently as casings.
By the Middle Ages, cities and towns all across Europe had their own unique meat and spice formulas. Madrid had chorizo, Vienna had the wiener, and the German city of Frankfurt am Main had the Frankfurter.
Germany has a great sausage tradition, the world's greatest sausage tradition.
By 1848, millions of Germans were immigrating to America.
And with this German population came their foods, and their foods included sausages.
It was a momentous era for both the U.S. and the hot dog.
Well, the Frankfurter first appears in America in the 1870s. There is no consistency in composition. They can include any kind of meat.
But all Frankfurters were a standard width.
You had to use lamb casings or lamb intestines to put the meat inside because the lambs are small animals. They're going to be thin sausages. The other important factor which makes them distinct is that they're cooked before they leave the manufacturing plant. Now, this is important because it means that it's easy to prepare them at home or at any sort of public place.
In the 1870s and 80s, Frankfurters were made by local butchers and meat packers who could sell cheap sausages made from meat scraps.
So it was food for the poor. There are, of course, high-end sausages, but American sausage tradition and hot dog tradition is food for the masses.
By the end of the 19th century, the Frankfurter had made it to America, but it was far from the American icon it would become. For that to happen, the sausage needed two things: a new name and an easy way to eat it. The bun.
The bun, by some tales, was created out of necessity. Originally, it appears that the hot dog was eaten just in the hand. Some people say with white gloves, that it was hot, so you would get a white glove and hold that hot dog and then return the white gloves and they would be passed on to the next person.
No one knows who the first person was to put the Frankfurter in a bun, but by the end of the 19th century, the sausage sandwich was standard practice. As for the name, that's also a little murky.
There's lots of myth and mythology that surrounds it.
One popular story about how the hot dog got its name takes place during a very cold New York Giants baseball game in 1902, when the food concessionaire was having some problems.
He couldn't sell peanuts and popcorn because it was too cold, people wouldn't buy it. So he told his vendors to go get hot boxes and go and get those Dachshund dogs, which means that they're German sausages which look like the dogs that German sausage owners kept.
They started shouting, "Get your red hots here, get your red hots here." And the next day there was a cartoon in the St. Louis paper which depicted a dachshund hound in a bun and being called a red hot dog.
Great story, but
the fact is this cartoon has never been found, so it doesn't exist. The name hot dog appears at least 10 years before, and it comes from college humor magazines at Princeton and Yale, and was applied as a joke. The joke was that, oh, where has my little dog gone? He's gone into those sausages.
The hot dog is such an American icon. There are lots of stories about who did what to give the hot dog its name or to put it on a bun for the first time.
But while the origins of the bun and the name may be disputed, there's no doubt about where hot dogs gained their national recognition. Coney Island. In the 1870s and 80s, gay Coney Island was a favorite destination for New York's elite.
This was like the Riviera. I mean, very well-to-do people. They'd have their own bungalows, they'd have hotels. I mean, the seas of people on the beach, and it was like the height, the place to be.
By 1874, a German restaurateur named Charles Feltman was selling an early version of the hot dog.
As Coney Island was becoming more popular, Feltman had realized that people wanted a sandwich. So what better than to make a sausage sandwich? German sausage sold in a white bun.
Feltman reportedly sold more than 3,000 sausage sandwiches in his first season alone.
Feltman opened several stands and eventually opened up a famous restaurant.
During the early 1900s, Feltman's Pier Garden served 900,000 customers a year, offering an epicure's parade of clams, lobster, beer, and of course, hot dogs. And then in 1912, destiny brought a young Jewish immigrant into Feltman's to apply for a job. His name? Nathan.
My grandfather was a roll cutter at Feltman's, and the job basically was, they used to take a roll and just feed it through a machine and cut it.
But Nathan Handwerker wasn't the only person working at Feltman's who would be famous someday.
He was befriended by two people. One was a singing waiter and the other was a piano player in Feltman's.
Soon I gotta see a man about a dog.
Jimmy Durante.
Did anybody see you come in?
And Eddie Cantor.
That's all I wanted to know.
The story goes that Jimmy Durante and Eddie Cantor had said to Nathan, well, Feltman's is charging 10 cents for a hot dog. Why don't you open up a place and sell it for a nickel?
In 1916, Nathan and his wife Ida found a spot on the corner of Surf and Stillwell Avenues.
My grandparents took their life savings of $300 and put it into the stand and called it Nathan's because they couldn't fit Handwerker on the sign.
They hired a local meat packer to make the hot dogs using Ida's special spice recipe.
And there's a lot of interaction between Nathan Handwerker and the meatpacking company that is supplying his hot dogs because he wants them a certain way, he wants them a certain thickness, he wants them a certain flavor. And chances are that Nathan's hot dogs tasted different than the ones from another manufacturer because there was that kind of specific creation of particular kinds of taste.
But when they promoted the hot dogs as half price, it didn't work at first. Customers thought cheap hot dogs must be made with questionable meat.
My grandfather's lesson to me very early. I remember distinctly, if I ever used the word hot dog, or the words hot dog, he says, no. We're not hot dogs. We're a Frankfurter.
To combat the unpopular associations, Nathan came up with a somewhat sly solution.
My grandfather went to Coney Island Hospital and borrowed doctors' coats and stethoscopes and dressed guys up as they were doctors, and they put the stethoscope around their neck and had them eat hot dogs in front. And the people said, hey, if it's good enough for a doctor, it's good enough for me to eat. So the rest is history.
By the 20s, the subway line to Coney Island had been completed. The station was right across the street from Nathan's, so the crowds poured in. And that was good news for Nathan's.
The people who went to Coney Island in the 19-teens, the 1920s, when Nathan was at their height, were the sons and daughters of immigrants. These were people who wanted to celebrate being young in America. And so they wanted to eat hot dogs.
Nathan's would go on to become an institution. As Governor Nelson Rockefeller said on the campaign trail in 1958, no man can hope to get elected in this state without being photographed eating hot dogs at Nathan's Famous. But as famous as Nathan's became, it's only one piece of early hot dog history. Even before Handwerker was attracting crowds at Coney Island, the one-man hot dog vendor operation was becoming a common sight on street corners. The cheap price of Frankfurters, the fact that they were pre-cooked in the factory, and their portability made them an easy sell.
And I think that's the interesting part. Hot dogs become popular not because some great manufacturer has an idea and starts promoting them. They become popular because probably hundreds, if not thousands, of little guys figure out that these things are attractive.
And as much as New Yorkers might like to think so, it wasn't only in their city where hot dogs were making a mark.
Everybody says it's their own. Here in Chicago, it might be dragged through the garden with lots of vegetables on it.
America in the Roaring '20s was all about fun. And hot dogs fit the decade perfectly. It was the perfect fun eat-out food.
The idea of a hot dog itself is that it's outside public food, eaten publicly.
They were enjoyed at the beach, at fairs, and at a new American invention, the weenie roast.
In the 1920s, picnics became hugely popular in America, and you can't have a picnic without a weenie roast.
Hot dogs also fit in perfectly with the national pastime, baseball.
You can hold a hot dog in one hand, and you can have a beer or a soda in the other, and still stand up and scream.
Hot dogs were a particular favorite of Yankee slugger Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth claimed to be a hot dog aficionado. Right now, athletes have put so much time into their conditioning, and they want to be in great shape, you know. But Babe Ruth, he used to have hot dogs and beers right before he came up to bat, and he always talked about how many hot dogs he can eat.
Babe Ruth supposedly ate one day while sitting in the dugout at Yankee Stadium 14 hot dogs, which is probably entirely likely.
But did Babe Ruth or anyone else actually know what they were eating? Hot dogs in the 1920s could be a shady product. They were made primarily from beef and pork, but which part of the animal was anyone's guess.
Brains, lungs, and other kinds of internal organs that could not be used otherwise.
In addition, hot dogs contain cereals like cornmeal and a preservative called sodium nitrite, which eaten in large amounts is hazardous to your health. That might sound bad until learning what sodium nitrite replaced. borax.
Borax people today use as a floor cleaner. Well, in the 1890s, food manufacturers discovered borax as a way of holding back the deterioration of food products like hot dogs that are not cured. It is banned explicitly in 1906 by the Meat Inspection Act. And between 1906 and 1925, food manufacturers search for various kinds of chemicals that will hold back the deterioration of meat. Sodium nitrite is what they settle on in the 20s, and it's still in our meat supply in a very big way.
Sodium nitrite is an antibacterial agent that prevents the growth of toxins in meat and preserves hot dogs' red color.
As meat gets older, the meat turns brown, and that's when many of us don't particularly want to buy it. The nitrate retards the development of that brown color and thereby allows meat to look younger than it probably is.
Of course, figuring out what was really in a hot dog was hard to do, because by the 1920s, standard hot dog manufacturing minced all the ingredients, added water, and turned the meat into a batter called an emulsion.
You have a big bowl, and men would take shovels and pour the various pieces of meat, intestines, lungs, hearts, whatever, into that bowl, and the bowl would be attached to essentially a lever that would have a series of knives. People are putting their hands into that area in order to get the meat in and out. This is seriously dangerous work.
The emulsion was then stuffed into the casings, sheep intestines. Regardless of its questionable ingredients, by the 1920s, the popularity of the hot dog was increasing daily, but manufacturing was having a hard time keeping up, in part because of the casings.
If you want to use intestines as a material to put food inside, those intestines have to be cleaned. That is a very nasty and difficult process.
Not only were the casings time-consuming to clean, they were also expensive and not very practical.
They have a limited length, and when you want to make large quantities of a product, you want to have long production runs. So if you're using natural casings, that is intestines, you've got to stop every time you fill one up.
You make it look so simple, so easy to do.
I've been doing it for a long time.
So that creates an interest in finding an artificial casing, one that does not have to be cleaned and one that can be infinitely long.
Enter a hot dog visionary named Erwin Freund.
Erwin Freund was in the meat business, of course, and the flavorings business. So he knew meat manufacturers and what their problems were.
In 1916, Freund set out to solve the problem. It took 10 years of experimentation, but in 1925, Freund found success using a natural occurring compound called cellulose to make artificial casings.
The way they're made is chemistry. It's a cellulose casing made out of cotton, actually. And the cotton is cooked down and made into fibers, then put onto a round cylinder, then finally made into a casing which was actually usable.
The casing could hold 200 times its own weight in sausage meat and stretch as much as 60%. Though not very tasty, the casings were technically edible. But there was only one problem. When the hot dogs were done cooking, the cellulose casing was loose and unappetizing. But luckily, Freund discovered that when the casings were removed, the hot dogs retained their shape. Freund had liberated the hot dog from its casing. Today, about 95% of hot dogs are made using artificial casings.
Artificial casings really helped speed manufacturing. Also, cellulose casings can be made identical in diameter and linked at identical intervals.
But after that, the casing is stripped away or peeled away from the hot dog.
I find a remarkable number of Americans who think there are casings on hot dogs. The vast majority of hot dogs that are in the market today with some of the big brands that many of us know and recognize, those are skinless hot dogs.
As the father of the skinless hot dog, Erwin Freund may have revolutionized how hot dogs were made. But another man would change the way hot dogs were sold. He was a Bavarian-born immigrant who was ahead of his time in branding and marketing. His name, Oscar Ferdinand Meyer. Appearing on TV in 1955, his son Oscar G. Mayer told his dad's story.
Came here from Germany. Father was born in 1859 and came to this country as a boy of 14 in 1873. He landed first at Detroit, and the next morning, he says, he walked down Gratiot Avenue looking for a job. He came to a store, a meat store, with a sign in the window, "Boy Wanted." And he walked in and got a job.
Mayer was a very ambitious man. By 1883, he and his brother had opened their own butcher shop on Chicago's North Side. It was successful, but modest. And Oscar Mayer was not a guy who settled for modest. By the 1920s, he and his family-run company were looking to take on the big boys.
The firms they want to compete with were known as the Big Four: Armour, Swift, Cudahy, and Wilson. These were four firms that controlled about 75% of the American meat market in the early 1930s.
Mayer knew he was a small fish in a big pond. Getting bigger was going to be tough. So instead, he decided to make the pond smaller.
Mayer thought, aha, I can't beat them in beef production, but maybe I can make a hot dog that's better than the Swift hot dog and the Armour hot dog, and make one that people will make a point of buying. This is a very smart strategy. It's called niche differentiation. If you can't beat the big guys at making huge numbers of products, you try to make a specialty product that through its special attention and through its taste develops a loyal clientele.
To attract customers, in 1929, Oscar Mayer began putting a paper ring with the company name on their hot dogs.
They thought if they put a band on each one of them, that will differentiate them and show what quality is.
That's a nice piece of meat, isn't it?
That's his great innovation, is realizing that you can brand the hot dog and attract people not just to a hot dog, but to the Oscar Mayer hot dog.
For Mayer, his brand meant quality.
He understood that he needed to do more than simply put the name of his company on the hot dog and a little yellow label. They needed to taste the same when they reached the consumers. And so there's stories about him forcing some of his plants to throw out huge batches of meat because they didn't meet his standards.
With the band and the brand set, it was time to take the show on the road, literally. The legendary Wienermobile, still a sight to behold today, was introduced in 1936.
That was just an incredible thing because they really launched an American icon.
The Wienermobile was the idea of Oscar's nephew, Carl Mayer.
Carl Mayer had been to circuses, so it's like that circus element. I mean, it looks like a sausage, right? With a yellow band on it, by the way. It's crazy. It's just nuts.
By the 1950s, a fleet of Wienermobiles were touring the country along with a diminutive company spokesman named Little Oscar. And wherever the Wienermobile was, it was an event.
Oscar Mayer Wienermobile was a stroke of genius.
You would go and see the Wienermobile in the parking lot and get really excited. Just, oh my God, I'm here for the Wienermobile. I'm going to go in, there's going to be the Oscar Mayer man. I'm going to get a little toy. It was a very, very special event that came every now and again. I wouldn't put it on the level of the Easter Bunny, but for a child, it was a gift.
It was a gift for the Oscar Mayer Company, too, which had grown beyond the wildest dreams of the young immigrant who stumbled upon a help wanted sign at a butcher shop 8 decades earlier.
One speculates with interest on what would have happened if Father had walked into a bakery shop, or perhaps a barber shop, or even a saloon.
Luck played a role in some of hot dog's biggest success stories, but it took the hard work of dedicated technologists to figure out how to make hot dogs faster. By the year 2000, the Wienermobile had toured Japan, Spain, Mexico, and Germany. There was no denying it, hot dogs had gone global. But it was on June 11, 1939 that the hot dog had its international coming out party. President and Mrs. Roosevelt invited the King and Queen of England to their home in Hyde Park, New York for a classic American picnic.
President Roosevelt wanted to serve the king a quintessential American meal. And so, of course, he gave the king a hot dog.
Reportedly, the king liked his delightful hot dog sandwich so much, he asked for seconds. King George wasn't the only one asking for more hot dogs. Throughout the 1930s, the consumption of Franks continued to climb, and with the Depression, a hot dog became more than a fun food. It became survival.
At a time when every cent counted, hot dogs really helped a lot of families get the protein they needed at a price they could afford.
In Chicago, hot dogs provided more than just protein. They became the entire nutritional chart. Legend has it that the traditional Chicago dog, which is piled high with extras like tomato, pickles, and peppers, was less a taste invention and more a way for practical Chicagoans to pack as much nourishment as they could into a cheap eat.
For a nickel, you could get a hot dog, say in Chicago, with a lot of stuff on it, as a whole meal.
But soon, the hot dog was in for an even bigger transformation, thanks to one remarkable device, the home refrigerator.
Meet the luckiest guy in the world. His mother owns a new International Harvester refrigerator. New and years ahead.
Although the concept had been around since 1914, home refrigerators didn't become affordable until the 1940s and 50s. Now, for less than $100, or 2% of an average family's yearly income, refrigeration was a reality. This was the hot dog's final frontier.
In the 1920s, 1930s, hot dogs were a food that you ate when you went out. But chances are you didn't eat hot dogs or frankfurters at home. The main obstacle was the absence of mechanical refrigeration.
With the onset of refrigeration, Americans could store hot dogs in their kitchen, and I think that's when hot dogs really became sort of the American standby that we know them as today.
By the 1950s, the average American baby boomer family was eating at least one hot dog a week per person.
What's for lunch? Hot dog? Oh, boy!
So you put the refrigerator and the children together, and you have a terrific opportunity for the hot dog to enter the home in a big way.
If you think, every house had its little yard and it had its little barbecue grill. And what do you cook on the grill? Well, Wheaties. So you have Wheatie roasts in your backyard. Perfect.
The 1950s and 60s were the golden age of hot dog innovation. To keep the supply ahead of demand, the hot dog industry had to shift into high gear.
The automation of the hot dog manufacturing was pioneered here in the U.S.
One of hot dog manufacturing's most notable pioneers, the Oscar Mayer Hot Dog Company. The man in charge of keeping Oscar Mayer one step ahead of everyone else was their director of research, Ted Sloan. Sloan's background was in plastics, which proved invaluable as his team looked into ways to keep hot dogs from growing moldy, even in a refrigerator. The hot dog's biggest enemy? Oxygen.
When you don't have oxygen, bacteria can grow.
Searching for a way to slow down the deterioration of meat, Sloan and his team experimented with a new Dow chemical product, Saran. They figured out a way to laminate the Saran, making it both stronger and able to seal to itself. With this new Super Saran, they had created a perfectly enclosed, intact bag. They then used vacuum technology to suck the oxygen out of the Saran bags after the hot dogs were placed inside. Oscar Mayer's airtight, form-fitting packaging soon became the look of grocery store hot dogs and is now the industry standard. Another huge achievement for Sloan's team was the development of a one-of-a-kind continuous hot dog processing system. In less than an hour, it could turn 10,000 pounds of raw ingredients into cooked wieners, speeding down the so-called hot dog highway.
And then the whole process of linking, smoking, cooking, cooling, separating takes place automatically.
Sloan's inventions were all the patents and property of the Oscar Mayer Company. But the rest of the hot dog manufacturing industry was about to get some needed help, thanks to an engineer named Ray Townsend. He invented a revolutionary hot dog making machine that was aptly named the Frank-O-Matic.
At that time, processors were challenged with how to automate the hot dog manufacturing line, and one of the most difficult steps in the process was twisting and linking each hot dog to the correct length. This was one of the most labor-intensive steps in the process.
The machine that Ray Townsend sketched on the back of a paper napkin in 1962 could automatically stuff, link, and even hang the hot dogs on a smoking rack.
The Frank-O-Matic helped enhance the speed by which we could make hot dogs. And the faster we could make the hot dogs, the more affordable we could make them.
Within 3 years of its introduction, Townsend Engineering reported that roughly 90% of all skinless hot dogs were being produced with the Frank-O-Matic, which could churn out an amazing 36,000 hot dogs an hour. Which was important, because by the 1960s, surveys showed that the average American was eating an impressive 75 hot dogs a year. Now the technology had caught up to demand, hot dog manufacturers had a new dilemma: getting customers to buy their hot dog and not someone else's. In Toledo, Ohio, there's a hot dog joint named Tony Paco's with a peculiar tradition. When stars come in for a hot dog, they don't autograph headshots, they sign buns. Since 1972, when Burt Reynolds signed the first bun, over 1,000 famous Frank lovers from Zsa Zsa Gabor to Bill Clinton have put their pen to bread.
It was a gimmick, but it was a great gimmick.
Whether it's building your hot dog stand in the shape of a hot dog, like LA landmark Tail of the Pup, or creating your own catchphrase like Atlanta drive-in institution The Varsity. When it comes to selling hot dogs, you gotta have a gimmick. Nobody understood the power of marketing better than Oscar Mayer. Even in 1915, they had an advertising budget of $2,000 that went toward window displays. By 1936, they were targeting kids with Little Oscar and the Wienermobile. In the 1950s, toy giveaways became popular, like the Wiener Whistle. Free in each package. But one advertising gimmick would prove its staying power longer than all the rest.
That is what I truly like to be.
Because if I were an Oscar Mayer wiener,
everyone would be in love with me. Everyone would be in love with me.
Once you hear it, you don't forget it.
Oscar Mayer All Meat Wieners presents the Vienna Symphony Orchestra.
When the Oscar Mayer Wiener jingle first hit the airwaves in 1963, it was so popular, people called into radio stations requesting the song. But the most memorable jingle of all time almost never was.
Oscar Mayer All Meat Wieners, a classic.
In 1962, Oscar Mayer's ad agency, J. Walter Thompson, sponsored a contest for jingle writers to come up with a wiener tune. In Chicago, professional jingle writer Richard Trentledge heard about the contest the day before the deadline. But coming up with something fast was no problem.
I know the product very intimately because I was selling them when I was 14, working in a meat market. I myself have cooked untold numbers of them.
For the contest entry recording, Trentledge had his own kids, David, 10, and Linda, 9, sing the song. He accompanied on a miniature banjo ukulele.
Oh, I wish I were an Oscar Mayer wiener.
The next morning, Trentledge walked the tape over to the ad agency and then waited. For a year. That's how long it took Oscar Mayer to test more than 200 jingles they'd received. In the end, Trentledge's tune was the winner, as were his kids, who were hired to sing the jingle for commercials.
Class attention. Forward march. Oh, I'd love to be an Oscar Mayer wiener. That is what I truly like to be.
And as a marketing technique, it was directed towards children, above all, and it helped drill into their minds. And I think that was the popularity. Me, I always found the jingle very, very annoying, but at the same time, I still remember it. So obviously, it was a very effective technique.
It's transcended the product. There are children who know that jingle and they probably don't even know what an Oscar Mayer hot dog is.
Soon after the jingle premiered, Oscar Mayer hot dog sales skyrocketed.
I think they say they've shipped enough hot dogs to date to go back and forth to the moon 27 times. That's a lot of wieners.
The Oscar Mayer jingle is said to be the oldest ad jingle still in use, and Trentledge is still getting royalty checks. He estimates over $250,000 since 1963.
You can't fight with success.
Oscar Mayer may have cornered the market on the memorable hot dog jingle, but certainly not on unforgettable gimmicks.
We're kosher. It's one of the great campaign ads ever.
But a long time coming. Founded on the Lower East Side of New York in 1905, Hebrew National catered mainly to a Jewish market until the mid-1940s, when the company decided to take the dogs into suburban supermarkets. Hebrew National marketed their kosher hot dogs as an all-American product, crowning a Frankfurter queen and offering tips on places to go for an old-fashioned picnic. But by the 1960s, lingering questions about what exactly went into a hot dog were getting louder.
Well, in the 1960s, there was no controls on companies when it came to both the fat content and also the nitrate content that went into these hot dogs.
In response, the government put a limit on the amount of fat allowed in a hot dog, capping it at 30%, and demanded other changes in the industry.
The result is certain kinds of materials from the animals are banned, such as lungs and later brains, and that companies are forced to label more clearly the kinds of ingredients that are being put into hot dogs.
It is those industry requirements that inspired this iconic Hebrew National ad from the 1980s.
The government says we can use artificial coloring. We don't.
The Hebrew National Uncle Sam ad was, to me, very, very clever. It shows Uncle Sam holding a hot dog, looking quite proud. And the voiceover in the commercial begins to describe all the things that the federal government, aka Uncle Sam, allows to have in a hot dog.
They say we can add meat byproducts. We don't.
And Uncle Sam looks increasingly crestfallen. And finally, the voiceover points out,
we're kosher and have to answer to an even higher authority.
And therefore does not allow these things in their hot dogs.
I thought it was pretty funny as an ad, because if there is a God, he's not paying any attention to how people make hot dogs.
According to the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, there are certain particular rules of hot dog etiquette. Rule number 1, always dress the dog, not the bun.
Never put the condiments underneath the hot dog. Put them on top.
I agree. You put your mustard or other kinds of ingredients on the hot dog, it's going to spread over that meat more evenly, and so you're going to get more of that taste.
Rule number 2, never take more than 5 bites to eat a hot dog.
Hot dogs are meant to be devoured. There's no need to be dainty. Take big bites.
That's not the way you eat a Chicago hot dog. It may take you 10, 15, 20 bites to finish it, but you'll be satisfied when you're done.
And if you do it in 5 bites, I don't know, you're going to have it all over your clothes.
And rule number 3.
Never ever put ketchup on a hot dog after the age of 18.
Absolutely not. Our hot dogs are rated NK17. No ketchup unless you're under the age of 17.
And when you get mustard on your finger, don't wash it. Lick it.
The rules are tongue-in-cheek, but the sentiment behind them is not.
The real overarching rule is that hot dog eating should not be a stressful experience. It should be the antithesis of the white tablecloth restaurant. Hot dogs are the great equalizer.
For over 100 years, hot dogs have remained America's fun food. The snack to grab on the street, throw on the grill, and binge on at the ballpark. And nothing proves that more than the sheer numbers of hot dogs that get eaten every year.
Americans consume about 7 billion hot dogs between Memorial Day and Labor Day. We generally consume around 150 million hot dogs in baseball parks every year. If laid end to end, that would stretch coast to coast from Dodger Stadium to Fenway Park in Boston. It's a lot of hot dogs.
Around the country, the tradition of hot dogs as street food is stronger than ever. New York boasts over 3,000 hot dog carts, while Chicago's signature hot dog stands number over 2,000. And roadside joints like Pink's in Los Angeles get more popular every day. But staying on top isn't easy.
Today there's a lot more competition, on boardwalks and in ballparks from many other foods, from sushi to ribs to nachos.
How do we keep hot dogs top of mind? How do we keep it that American favorite? That's our biggest challenge as an industry today.
One approach, hot dogs with a healthier appeal. Creating chicken or turkey franks with 85% less fat than regular beef or pork dogs. Another idea, selling hot dog wraps. Or franks with no meat at all.
The hot dog bites definition has to contain meat or poultry, so the tofu products I like to call hot dog-like products, but they're really not a hot dog.
But back where the hot dog first found fame, Nathan's does its part to represent the original with its annual hot dog eating contest.
On July 4th, each year, at Coney Island, at high noon, we begin our hot dog eating contest. And when the gun goes off and they start eating hot dogs for 12 minutes, it's a wild scene. Seeing older men and younger women and kids eating as many hot dogs as they can.
Believed to have begun in 1916, the contest has since taken on an amazing life of its own. It is now sanctioned by the International Federation of Competitive Eating. And its trophy, the coveted mustard yellow international belt, is regarded as competitive eating's greatest prize.
ESPN covered it live and replays it constantly. You have media from other parts of the country following their local champions.
That's unbelievable.
Although the contest is open to the public, the 20 competitors are often returning pros that know the strategy. Break the dog in half and shove it in your mouth, while at the same time dunking the bun in water for quicker consumption.
I'm just astonished by the quantities that they consume. It's definitely one of those things that needs the warning, don't try this at home.
In recent years, one man has dominated. 144-pound Takeru Kobayashi from Japan. His record, 53 and a half hot dogs in 12 minutes.
It's crazy. All over the world I've traveled, and the first question I'm asking is, how does that little Japanese guy eat so many hot dogs, you know? Kobayashi in Japan is like a little rock star, and he has a following primarily of young girls that go around with him, and they scream when he's eating Nathan's hot dogs. It's a wild scene, and it's a lot of fun.
As good a champion as Kobayashi is, winning 5 contests in a row, some can't help wishing for a homegrown hot dog hero.
I would be really pleased if we could have an American champ able to dethrone the Japanese champ, you know, because I view, you know, hot dog as part of the landscape of Americana.
From Coney Island contest to Oscar Mayer wiener wishing, from New York carts and Chicago stands to Los Angeles drive-ins and everywhere in between, the hot dog is a true edible American original.
Hot dogs are so strongly associated with the events that become our memories, like our birthday parties and picnics and trips to the ballpark. So Americans feel very strongly about them.
It's a part of the fabric of this country, and it's become just part of our culture. And I think it'll never go away. It'll always be a part of who we are as Americans.